Hey friends, today let's talk about labels and how you can break free from them to find your true self. Before we get started, two things. One, yes, that is Taylor Swift behind me. Me and her are besties and we're hanging out today. So just ignore her. She's nothing special. She's gonna be watching over us for this video. So secondly, and more importantly, I want to give credit to my friend Chris Williams and his book, Labels to Legacy, for inspiring this message. Chris's book is all about breaking limits and leading with purpose. It chronicles how he turned pain and pressure and self-doubt into strength. If you find this video helpful, I highly recommend checking out his book, Labels to Legacy. It's a powerful reminder that the labels we carry are never the end of the story. So please, if this message resonates with you, check out Chris's book. I'll link to a place where you can purchase it in the comments. All right, so today I want to talk about labels, both the ones we put on ourselves and the ones we put on other people. Listen, we all have them. There can be words or tags that we internalize about who we are. Some labels might seem positive or even harmless, but they can stick to us in negative ways. We start to believe those labels and it changes how we see ourselves. So today I'm going to speak to you about this from the heart and from personal experience. My goal here is to share why labels don't define us and how they can hold us back and how we can shed them to grow into the person we're meant to be. Have you ever caught yourself saying, hey, I'm just not good at blank, or I'm a blank person? That is labeling yourself. In psychology, labeling means taking one trait or experience and turning it into an absolute definition of who you are. It's when a single word or idea, often a negative one, becomes a blanket description of a whole person, ignoring all evidence of the contrary. For example, if you've had a rough time at a new job, you might label yourself stupid or a failure because you had that experience. Once a label gets stuck, it's slow to change and it's super hard to shake off. As humans, we're pretty complex, yet we reduce ourselves to simple tags as if we were just items on a store shelf. The danger is that these labels start to feel true even if they're not. If people call you lazy or shy enough times, or if you tell yourself you're not talented or not worthy, you'll eventually buy into it. Here's the kicker with that. When you accept a negative label as your identity, you're more likely to act in ways that make that a reality. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The longer you carry a label like a failure or a loser, the more unconsciously you behave like one, even though you're capable of so much more. That's how a label quietly holds us back. Labels box us into a fixed story. They sap our confidence and limit our growth. In fact, if we let labels define us, we can get held back from being our true selves and achieving our goals. It can even rob us of our contentment and our happiness. And even so-called good labels can create pressure. Maybe you've always been labeled the smart one or the responsible one, and that might sound nice, but it can make you fear making mistakes or trying new things that don't fit that label. You might always stick to what is defined as safe so you can live up to that label instead of stretching yourself and trying something new. So whether they're positive or negative, labels end up limiting how we think about ourselves. We start seeing ourselves through a narrow lens, and we might also label others and then stop seeing the full person behind that label. So to sum that all up, labels simplify a rich, complex person down to a single word. And that mindset can really stunt our growth. Quick personal story, because this isn't just theory for me personally, it's something I've lived with my whole life. It's been there a lot, and I only recently learned how to shed some labels, but I'll start with the beginning and where it kind of came from for me. When I was younger, I was always a bit of a chubby kid, and I was kind of hyper, and I was always had that label that followed me. I would always kind of act out in class. It started to feed into it a little bit, and people used to always point it out for me. Eventually, I started to wear that label as a name tag. I would always try to crack jokes, even about myself. I would feed into the fact that I was kind of chubby and maybe not so athletic, because I started to accept that's who I was. And that really created a lot of tension in my mind as a young person growing up in a place where those weren't necessarily the most positive things to be. Fast forward that to like high school years, it was holding me back. I missed opportunities to make friends, to try new experiences, and to challenge myself. I grew up playing a couple sports, and I started believing that I could never make the team or I could never actually do anything good to contribute. I remember thinking about trying out for a hockey team, and in my head I said, why bother? You're too fat for that. But in reality, the label was calling the shots. It was changing my mindset for the worse. I started believing I couldn't do things that pushed me beyond that identity. My own belief in that label was stifling my growth. and not any real lack of ability. It wasn't until I consciously questioned that label that things changed. With the encouragement of my track and field coach in high school, who put faith in me that I could be a strong, confident person and I could actually do something that was really athletic and really good, I started to change my attitude because somebody else changed that way I viewed myself. And I was able to shed those labels that were given to me by others, but I adopted. I lost weight, I got in shape, and it's been following me for the rest of my life. I changed my mindset and broke the mold of what I thought I was supposed to be. And if you know me, I've gone on to do some pretty cool athletic endeavors and pretty much built my life around being physical. Maybe you've had a similar experience. Perhaps someone in your life labeled you not athletic or bad at math or difficult, and you carried that for years. Or maybe even you labeled yourself after a setback, like calling yourself a failure after a business didn't work out or you had a bad encounter at work. These things hurt and they leave a mark. But my story and countless others show that labels only have as much power as we give them. Once we challenge them, we can begin to peel them off and see our true self underneath. So how do we shed these labels that are bringing us down? I promise you, it's not an overnight thing. It's a process of changing how you talk to yourself and what you believe about yourself. Realize a label is just a word and not your identity. The first step is awareness. Catch yourself when you say, I am, whatever negative label it is. Remind yourself that I have X trait or I did Y once, but that's not all of me. You are a multifaceted human being, not a single sticker with one trait. In Chris's book, he often emphasizes ownership over perfection. You can own your past and your choices without letting them define your entire identity. Your mistakes or your traits are things that you have, not who you are. That mindset opens the door to that change. Identify your strengths and focus on them. One effective way to counter a negative label is to deliberately focus on your positives. Make a list of things that you're good at and times that you've succeeded, and qualities that you like about yourself. We tend to over-identify with our weaknesses or our struggles, but we can choose to identify with our strengths instead. For instance, instead of saying, I'm a failure, remind yourself, I'm resilient and creative. I've overcome setbacks before. By seeing the good in ourselves, we dilute the power of only that negative label. Challenge your labels with action. This is a big one. Take action that disproves that label. To stop labeling yourself, you need to gather evidence that you're more than that label. That means doing things that push you a bit out of your comfort zone. So if you've labeled yourself not creative, maybe sign up for a painting class or try writing a short story. Every new challenge you tackle is proof to yourself that the old label is not the whole truth. That can be scary. Nobody likes the discomfort of new things. But each time you succeed, you learn something new, you chip away at that label. And that means you're redefining who you are in your own mind. Remember, the more you act outside your label, the more it breaks its bond. Now, this is a big one next. Stop using negative labels in your self-talk. Pay attention to the words you use about yourself, even in your own head. Are you calling yourself lazy? Are you calling yourself ugly? Are you calling yourself stupid or broken or any of those other harsh labels? You need to commit to dropping those words. They're not motivating you. They're not positioning your mindset in a positive way. Instead, practice describing situations or behaviors without slapping a permanent label on yourself. For example, rather than I'm stupid, you might say, I don't understand that topic, but I can learn it. Treat yourself with the same understanding that you would give a friend. You wouldn't sum up a friend by what they did on one bad day or one flaw that they have, so don't do it to yourself. Okay, so this one is right out of Chris's book. Define yourself on your own terms and focus on your own legacy. In his book, Chris talks about shifting from labels to legacy. In other words, think about the bigger picture of who you want to be and the impact that you want to have rather than the small label that's been holding you back. What do you want to be remembered for? What values and passions do you want to live out? When you zoom out like this, those limiting labels start to look pretty insignificant. You realize your story isn't, I'm a failure, your story is being written and you have the pen. You can choose to turn those past labels into something meaningful. It can be fuel for growth, empathy, and purpose. Chris wrote in his book that owning your past and even the painful parts is how you turn your story into strength and leave a legacy for your whole life. So in conclusion, labels do not define you. You define you. It's easy to peel off a label that's been stuck on you for years, but it's possible. It starts with recognizing the label for what it is, just a shortcut, a stereotype, a story that can be changed. Little by little, you prove it wrong by living outside its lines and embracing more of who you truly are. I won't pretend that it's magic or instant, and I'll be honest, it takes courage and consistency to step up with battling a label. But I can tell you from my own journey, it's worth it. When you drop that old label, you feel free. You give yourself permission to try and fail without calling yourself a failure, and to succeed without feeling like an imposter. You start seeing yourself in a new light, and that changes everything. Here's my challenge to you. Think of one label you've been carrying, maybe something cruel someone else has said about you, or a limiting name you've called yourself, and ask yourself, is this label serving me, or is it holding me back? If it's the latter, make a decision just today to start letting it go. Until we accept who we are and stop clinging to these false labels, we limit our own growth. But the moment we do, we can finally grow into our full potential. I'm super grateful to my friend Chris for writing this book and reinforcing his lesson for me. His book, Labels to Legacy, is a testament to how someone can overcome the labels of the past and turn them into a powerful legacy for the future. Listen, if this topic hit home for you, I certainly encourage you to check out his book for more inspiration and practical wisdom. I will link it below. I'll put some pictures here. But remember, labels were never the end to your story. You have the pen in your hand right now, and write the story that you want. And let your life be your legacy, not your label. I'll steal another line from Chris. Keep digging in and keep growing. You got this. We'll see you soon.